right, I'm here with Mr. Bill Adler, Christopher from SSOD Styles. Today, Mr. Bill Adler is having his iJammy event at the Art of Hip Hop, and he was kind enough to answer a few questions for me and educate me on some of the hip hop influences before my era. So, Mr. Bill Adler, thank you for being on here today.
Pleasure.
Thank you, sir. And what were you looking for when you began iJammy?
You know what? I would say that the predecessor was just having worked at Def Jam Recordings and Rush Artist Management, two separate companies worked under the same roof between 1984 and 1990. And during that time, you know, I worked with a number of notable artists, but also I met a number of notable photographers who were documenting what these artists were doing. And I stayed in touch with them. So, you know, I as I said, I left Def Jam in 1990, but by 1991, I teamed up with Jeanette Beckman, who was a notable photographer during the 80s.
Wow.
And the two of us put out one of the very first books of rap photography. And it was her photos and my text. And so, you know, I just mentioned it to say that, you know, my devotion to, my appreciation for hip-hop photography goes back that far. And I can't remember exactly how it was I came up with the idea of a gallery devoted to hip-hop photography. It was just something I thought I could do because I already had an office space that it wouldn't have been hard. It wasn't hard to convert it to an exhibition space. Very small office, 20 by 20, and I was able to start putting together, you know, exhibitions of hip hop photographies, oftentimes devoted to the work of a particular photographer. And it was very gratifying.
How many photographers would you say have helped you on this journey through this vision?
You know, a couple of dozen, maybe more. I mean, I'll tell you this. Here's what happened. You know, I put together, you know, we did, I don't know, a dozen and a half shows in the course of 5 years. And it generated some good publicity, and I had an awful lot of fun doing it, but we didn't sell a lot of photo prints. So when it was all over, I put the prints in a file cabinet. And then, kind of out of the blue, I heard from the woman who was the photo curator of this museum that was yet to open. And it was sponsored by it's part of the Smithsonian Institution, and it's called the National Museum of African American History and Culture. And they opened up in 2016, but I heard from this woman, Rhea Combs, in 2015, because she'd heard about my collection of photos and she was interested in it. And in that year, in 2015, I sold them the collection of the iJammy photos. And that was tremendously gratifying, and it remains gratifying. And I would recommend to anybody listening that if they want to see, you know, 300 of the 400 photos that I sent, that I sold to that museum, you can go online and find them there. But this particular exhibit, you know, grew up, you know, fairly randomly. You know, Alan Kett is a devotee of hip-hop, a student of hip-hop, and, you know, he thought this might be a good idea. And so I turned around and I spoke to the folks at the Smithsonian, and they cooperated with us and made scans available of some of the prints that we were interested in so that we could turn around and make prints of them and produce this show.
Very cool. Yeah, and then I wanted to ask you, since my era was the 90s hip-hop with when it first started, more of the Jay-Z and Nas era, what are some of the differences in hip-hop from your early 80 days with Def Jam and those 90 days that I know about, where it was more lyrical rapping, where in the 80s I think the hip hop was still more scratching and DJing, less lyrical. Did you also see a lyrical change in hip hop?
You know what? I don't see it that way. Here's what occurs to me. Through the 80s, it was mostly a New York culture. And one of the great things about rap and hip hop is that it managed to become an international culture. And here in America, it migrated from New York City to a number of other cities. You know, Philadelphia, Miami, Houston, Los Angeles, Atlanta. And one of the great things about it was this. And it speaks to, I'd say, the appeal of hip hop generally, is that by the way, can I curse? If I curse, is that all right?
Please do.
All right. So if you can't distinguish yourself from the people who inspired you, if all you want to do is basically imitate Eric B. and Rakim, you're going to fuck up. It won't work. You must create your own identity. Hip hop requires it. And so what happened in the 90s, I think, is that each of these individual cities started to produce music consistent with the local culture. So, you know, there was a moment, and I wish I could tell you what year it was. It might have been 95 or so. And there was a hip hop convention. I think it was sponsored by the Source magazine. And at the time, there was a lot of beef between New York and Los Angeles. You know, who the fuck cares? As if, you know, that was the entirety of what was going on in hip hop.
Do you think violence?
Wait a minute. And one of the brothers from what was the great Atlanta hip hop group?
The Yin Yang Twins?
No.
Before that?
Yeah. Andre 2000.
OutKast.
Okay, so you'll edit that out, right? Okay.
Of course.
Okay, so...
Edit out the OutKast.
Right. So one of the brothers from OutKast got up on the mic at this event and kind of pushed everything else to the side. He said, the South got something to say. Very, very much to his credit. Not least because it was fucking true. And I'll say this also. One of the things we did with this exhibit is our best to represent hip-hop from all different parts of the country, because it just reflects reality.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bill Adler, today. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I wish you nothing but more success with these exhibitions. This hip-hop culture has influenced me since 5th grade, when I bought my first CD, and the chance to interview somebody who's had such an impact in the hip-hop industry has really helped me out and, you know, taught me more. So thank you very much.
Listen, it's a pleasure for me. This is very gratifying to have this exhibition spring up more or less out of nowhere. And, you know, I'm glad you're interested. I hope I had some useful stuff to say.
Oh, yeah, of course. Thank you very much. And, enjoy the rest of your night.